everyone, welcome to Christina Cakes It. I'm Christina and today I'm showing you how to make a Lambeth inspired vintage piped cake. Vintage piping is definitely really making a comeback right now. It is super popular and the king of vintage piping is Joseph Lambeth, and he made the style popular in the 1930s. The original method actually used royal icing and it's known to be extremely ornate and you need a lot of skill to do that level of piping. So the cake I'm making today, I'm actually gonna be using buttercream icing because it's just a lot easier to work with. I actually have a confession. This is my second attempt at the cake. I started this last night and I just wasn't in a good piping place, I guess, and I didn't like how it was going. And I just didn't like how it was turning out, so I ended up scraping all of it off and giving a fresh coat of buttercream. And today I'm definitely in a good place to start this technique. A few things before I get started with my piping is you can see that I actually did practice all of the different piping tips and like different things that they can do beforehand. That was really helpful to me, and so I definitely suggest practice your piping before you actually pipe on the cake. I've also prepped all of my different piping bags, and as you guys know, that takes quite a while. Like honestly, that probably took like an hour just to fill all these different piping bags and get those ready. And another helpful thing is I bought this little cake marker. I just got it on Amazon, and this is gonna help me mark my cake to make sure that everything is like centered and the exact height that I want it. So very useful, the cake marker, not required, but highly recommend. And the other thing that you're gonna wanna do if you do this cake technique is you are going to definitely wanna mark your cake, as I mentioned. And a really easy way to do that is to cut some wax paper out, or you can use parchment paper, the exact surface area of the top of your cake. And you just wanna fold it in half and half again. And I'm gonna do it one more time. And what I'm getting is exact even sections, which we want because we want everything even and symmetrical. And then we're gonna use that to mark our cake. So I'm gonna begin by placing my little template on my cake. And I'm just gonna take a little bit of buttercream icing and mark. I would like to note that I'm on my tiptoes. So what I'm doing next is I'm using a circle cutter to make marks for the arches that I'm gonna want with my cake. And I chose this size circle because it's the same size as like each section, and that was really important. So I'm just gonna press in, and I'm trying just to press more in the top, not so much in the bottom. I haven't decided if I want arches on the bottom. I'm not sure yet. And next I'm going to use my cake marker to go through and mark where I want each arch to start. So obviously all this is going to get covered with icing. Here I have my Wilton tip 104, and I'm just gonna start making a ruffle following my guide. So when I'm making these arches, my wide part of the icing tip is towards the bottom of the cake, so narrow side up, and I'm actually lifting the piping tip as I'm following the arch. And if your piping tip gets a little clogged, definitely wipe that excess away. So next I'm using a Wilton tip 18, and I'm gonna pipe a shell border under the arch. So the thing about the Lambeth method is everything is over piped. So if you think you're like, oh, it looks done, add more piping. pipe a little detail that you don't like, I have found that the little Scribe tool for cookies is so clutch for this. You can just take it off. And if you can't get it off, chill your cake for maybe 5 or 10 minutes and then you can scrape it off. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark my cake again where I want my next element to start. So the next element is gonna be the classic fleur-de-lis, and I'm using a Wilton tip 21. And to be honest, this is where my first attempt kind of fell apart yesterday. I'm actually gonna go ahead and give it another mark where I want these to end. I could see this being a problem if I don't do this. So what I'm doing next is I'm placing an edible pearl at the bottom. And this to me actually just makes it look cleaner. So next I'm using a Wilton tip 224 and I'm gonna pipe a rosette where each of the ruffles meet. So I did not like the look of those, so you can see I just scraped them off and I switched to a Wilton tip 21 and I'm just gonna make a little swirl. So next I'm taking a leaf tip, this is a 67, and I'm just gonna add tiny little leaves to this. So I've used a strip of wax paper that's cut to the exact circumference of the cake. What this is doing is it's marking evenly across, horizontally for the cake so that I can basically hit the mark I want as I'm doing these bottom arches. So these are gonna be U's here. And the goal is to use this as a guide. So these obviously look a little flawed, but what I'm doing is I'm basically using this as a mark and I'm gonna pipe over these with a thicker tip. So I'm using a Wilton tip 16 to pipe over this. And I'm just making a little zigzag to make the garland. So what I want to do now is I actually do want to come to the bottom of the cake and I'm going to add a shell border along the bottom and add some little details above it, and then I'm probably going to come back to the top. So for this I'm using an Ateco 864. And this is just a classic shell. So next I'm going to take a Wilton tip 352, which is a leaf tip, and this actually makes a really pretty ribbon, and I'm just going to put this right on top of my shell. So next I'm just adding a little gold pearl onto the cake. I feel like that's just a nice touch of color, a good accent to make everything look clean. My vintage pipe cake is complete, and I think it turned out really well. And if you guys have any other ideas for cakes that you would like to see me make, don't forget to leave those in the comments below. And if you did enjoy this episode, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel.